Holy shit. I wasn't going to do a video today. As a matter of fact, I'm still, literally, I'm woozy. I need to go get something to drink. I got to take a shower. I got to wash all this fucking grease off of me. Today's June 3rd. The axle on my truck ripped. I don't know when it ripped. It's been ripped for a while. And I decided I was going to replace it today. I want to go to the beach and you know, drive my truck on the beach. That's what I built the fucking thing for. Well, I'm going to keep the story short because attention span's low. So here's the axle, and the boot was ripped. The axle's probably still good, but the boot was ripped pretty good. So I actually had that axle out when I rebuilt the front end. I didn't replace it because it wasn't ripped, it wasn't bad, it was in fine condition. So I've had that axle out before. That is a 15-minute job. I shouldn't say 15 minutes. With a lift, it's maybe half hour, 40 minutes with my tools right next to me. Having to work out in the driveway, it's about an hour job. The goddamn tires weigh about 75 fucking pounds a piece. So, what happened? Well, the axle didn't want to come out. The axle didn't want to come out. So when the axle, I finally did get the axle out, or when the axle didn't want to come out. All you're supposed to have to do is pull on it. There's a little ring in there. You jiggle the axle around, you pull on it, it pops out. It didn't want to come out. I'll put still pictures in of how many tools it took me to get this thing out. I broke my puller. Fuck you, Harbor Freight. But then again, too, I was whacking it with an impact gun. I had porta powers on it, I had slide hammers on it, I had every tool in my arsenal to pull this thing apart. I finally pulled the axle itself, the assembly apart. I cut the boot and I pulled the axle apart so I could access this piece here. There's a plug that goes in here. It's like a freeze plug. So I pulled the freeze plug out so I could gain access to the output shaft on the differential, the rear differential. And I'm pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling. It won't come off. I get my, I don't know where they're at. There's a pile of shit right behind me that I was using. I finally get the puller in there, and I can't get it off with the puller. So I break the puller, which means I only had one puller. It's Saturday, and I got no vehicle to go get another puller. So I flip the wings around on the puller. Here it is. Notice there's only one half of the puller left. Well, that's because the other half flung off into the nether regions when it finally popped apart. But in the interim, I had to actually physically cut the axle housing. So the axle, yeah. So I had to actually physically cut this thing, installed in the vehicle with a whizzy wheel. That took an hour. Shockingly, it only took 2 discs to do it. And that thing's pretty thick. That's 1/4 inch plus thick steel. So I got that cut so I could get a better grip on it with the puller. So I hooked the puller on the back side here, that has, you know, it's a nice flat spot to put the puller on. And I'm whacking at it, whacking at it, and whacking at it with the impact gun. And finally, I ugga-dugga the fucker off of there. But boy, whew. And what's crazy is there's grease on the inside. It's not boogered up. It's not rusted on. I don't know why it didn't want to come off, but man, I've done 100 axles. 99 of them came apart relatively easily. I had one a couple years ago on another Dodge where the front spindle actually didn't want to come off. At the end of the day, we ended up replacing the spindle because the whole assembly was rotted together. That was a known issue with those things. It stays like this when the old adage of your one broken bolt turns a 15-minute job into a 2-day ordeal. One piece of axle, half of that shaft that didn't want to come out, turned an hour-long max project into a 4-hour-long ordeal. But I won. The Dodge will live to see another, another day. And we'll just keep moving right along. So, yoy.